So whether it's the ACC, the SoCon, the Big 12s, the Big 10, you got to know these big storylines before this upcoming weekend of competition. And there is a lot. Like there's a lot to know as I go into this topic. That's why it is the main segment of the Fanco Wrestling Show in this week's podcast. And there's just so many storylines outside of the Big 10. You know, I talk about Big 10 a lot, and I have a lot more outside of the Big 10 here. So this segment is actually brought to you by channel member William DeHaas. And channel members support this channel, support this podcast by donating, actually giving their money every single month to help support this channel. But not only do they just give their money, they get exclusive behind-the-scenes content in return for that on Patreon and on YouTube, such as exclusive behind-the-scenes videos. Like I just dropped this video of me wrestling Michael Kemmer in high school. If you want to see that match, you can go ahead and check out my Patreon. And then channel supporters who, if you're a channel supporter now, go ahead and drop a channel emoji, an exclusive channel emoji that only Fanco channel members can get. The other cool thing that I will be sending out to my channel members on Patreon is this sweet new Fanco wrestling sticker that I just designed. They're going out right now. If you want to get one, you can join and get one of these as a part of the Fanco channel membership on Patreon. Appreciate the support, and let's get into the topics of ACCs. I'm going conference by conference, talking about every single storyline. 165 pounds is arguably the absolute toughest bracket. I mean, in my opinion, in the conference championships, just because, I mean, it is so darn loaded, and anything can happen here. Like, Jake Wenzel sits at the number 1 seed. Mekhi Lewis is the number 2 seed. So anytime you have a returning NCAA champion as a 2 seed, that's when you know the bracket is extremely tough. Jake Keating of Virginia is number 3, and Kennedy Monday of UNC is number 4. And we also have Bullard here, who's a 5 seed, who will be wrestling Kennedy Monday in the first round of ACCs. This is crazy. I can't believe this bracket. Wenzel is the defending ACC champ, although Mekhi Lewis won an ACC championship, not last year because that's when he took his Olympic redshirt year, but the year before that. He has wins. Wenzel has wins over Mekhi, over Monday, over Jake Keating. But Jake Keating and like Thomas Bullard, those are a couple guys just kind of on the outskirts that you should be on the lookout for here at 165 pounds in the ACC. Can't wait to see how that bracket turns out. The other thing going on in the ACC is 197 pounds. Another tough bracket with Dino Bonaccorsi, Giaiello, Nick Reenan this is the thing that's just kind of we figured out is that Nick Reenan now is wrestling 197 for NC State. Kind of strange because Isaac Trumbull's the one who's been on fire this season. He's the one who beat Nino Bonaccorsi outright. I mean, he got him at Turkey, got him at his back, got some back points, but he did beat him. So I wonder why Nick Reenan's in here, but best of luck to him. I'm an NC State supporter. Living in Raleigh myself, enjoy supporting these North Carolina teams. And I just can't wait to see how they. But of course, I'm also supporting a Nino Bonaccorsi, who's a Whitfield guy, whereas from where I'm actually from is from Pennsylvania. And then the big team race here, the team race between NC State and Virginia Tech, and you throw a Pitt in there on the outskirts. NC State is looking for their 3rd straight ACC title, and this is going to be a tough year to get it with Virginia Tech, who just won the regular season title by winning the dual meet. Now, NC State has 4 number 1 guys: Tariq Wilson, they have Hayden Hiley, Daniel Bullard at 74, and Deontay Wilson. All those guys are number 1 seeds. Pitt has 3 number 1s, and Virginia Tech also has 3 number 1s. The biggest team race implications here are with Sam Latona versus Jacob Camacho. If those two make the finals at 125, we saw fireworks. We saw sparks fly in the dual meet coming down to the last couple of seconds there, and that's a match I think could go either way. Hunter Boland and Trent Hiley, they've wrestled close matches, close decisions, just like recently, and it's going to come down to that. If Latona and Boland win, that's going to help their team out more than and may push Virginia Tech over the top. Let's move on to the Big Ten. Of course, Spencer Lee is a big storyline, looking for another title in the Big Ten. Although he won't be a four-time Big Ten champion because he's had a couple of rough years at the Big Ten with NATO, with Sebastian Rivera. But it'll be interesting to see who the number 2 guy is, with Cronin, Heinzelman, Eric Barnett, Pat McKee, Rayvon Foley, all fighting for that number 2 spot. But speaking of Sebastian Rivera, to me, this is the biggest storyline in the Big Ten, is 141. What happens at 141 with Sebastian Rivera, with Nick Lee, and with Jaden Ironman? All of these guys haven't wrestled yet, so I'm pumped to see what is going to happen. Last time we saw Nick Lee and Jaden Ironman wrestle in college was a couple of years ago, and each of them have just grown tremendously since then. So, I'm not basing anything off of that, but Ironman's a funky guy. Nick Lee is just a very technical guy. We've seen that from the way each of these guys have been wrestling this season. Ironman's not necessarily blowing anybody crazy out of the water, but Nick Lee is somebody who just scores, bonus. That's also kind of the Penn State way, but when these guys get into it, and then Sebastian Rivera, who has already upset crazy guys at the Big Ten championships, won Big Tens last couple of years. I mean, beating Spencer Lee was a huge storyline that year. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Can Sriracha, we talked a little bit about 74 in the ACC, but with 74 in the Big Ten, Carter Sriracha has been gaining a lot of momentum here. With beating the number 2 guy in the country back-to-back weeks with Massa and then beating Caleb Romero of Ohio State. But I'm interested in seeing how far ahead Kemmer is from the crowd. Is Sriracha on Kemmer's level? Can he compete with him if he even makes the finals? Because obviously that's going to be a tough finals to make. This is a loaded weight at 74. Heavyweight, I'm pumped to see Stevenson and Mason Parrish go at it finally again since last year's Big Ten championships. And the team race here that will come down to it is Penn State and Iowa. But throw in a Michigan, throw in a Nebraska. Unfortunately, Stephon Meach is out from Michigan. They're shifting their lineup a little bit, and we'll see if that ends up paying off for Michigan. I still think that they're in contention. They lost to Penn State. They had a good showing against them in the duel, but tournaments are different than duels. They didn't get to wrestle. I don't think they were able to wrestle Nebraska or Iowa this year. And so that was unfortunate, but they're all coming head-to-head in the Big Ten championships, and we saw Iowa and Penn State share the Big Ten trophy in the regular season, but what's going to happen when it comes to the postseason? As far as the Big 12, there are a couple more conferences. I know this is a big segment. We're only on the Big 12s, and we still have the EIWAs, the MACs, the SoCons, and these are storylines. Don't leave just because the Big 10's over. The Big 10's very exciting, but there's so much going on in the rest of college wrestling that you should pay attention to. Like that clip I just showed there, Buchanan beating Noah Adams. He beat him in back-to-back weeks and will be wrestling again at the Big 12 championships, depending. I mean, that's still a tough bracket at 197 with A.J. Ferrari of Okie State, Tanner Sloan of South Dakota State, and Jake Woodley of Oklahoma. This is one of the other, I think, most stacked brackets in the conference championships. Big 12s, I mean, you got Buchanan, who only has his losses outside of the Big 12s, so he is the clear kind of number 1 at the weight. Noah Adams, who was the clear number 1 heading into this season, had a great record just coming into this season, wins this season over Ferrari, Woodley, and is the reigning Big 12 champion, so he's going to want to come in and take that. Tanner Sloan is an undefeated wrestler, I believe maybe the only undefeated wrestler here, who had his last loss to Noah Adams at last year's Big 12 championships. And then a couple other things here, in the Big 12s. Of course, Okie State is going to be looking for another title, looking for their 9th straight title. And there's another team, there are actually a couple other teams coming up that are looking for, there's one team that's looking for one more title than Okie State in the MAC. Do you know who it is? Boo Llewellyn's looking good, looking for his second title. Fix looking for his second title. And then with Okie State also, guys that are going to have to help them. Master Giovanni, he's going to have to help Plot Ferrari in order for Okie State to win this with a young team. Brody Teske is another young guy, not from Okie State, but who I'm interested to see him wrestle at 25, wrestle against Giovanni again. Can he win that? It'll be good for him after transferring out from Penn State, transferring into the Big 12, see how he's going to be able to wrestle. And then Demas is looking to renew his 2019 title. He lost last year. He's got to find a way to beat Parker. That's his heel has been in the last couple of seasons. Can he beat him this year? And the EIWA, big EIWA implications. Now, unfortunately, no Ivy Leagues. We don't have the Cornells, we don't have the Harvards, but there's still a lot of other things going on. Also, F&M not wrestling. And although none of these teams are coming to wrestle in the postseason, there is one team that is coming back. I know I've been hyping up the MAC so much. You got to stick around for that. Navy is seeking their first EIWA title since the 90s. Since 1990, I believe, is the last time they won an EIWA title, because Lehigh and Cornell have been going back and forth for the last 20 years. The last team to actually win the EIWA that wasn't Cornell or Lehigh was Harvard back in 2001. So that's kind of crazy. Now, Lehigh is seeking their fourth straight title, so don't give it to Navy right away. Although with a new coaching staff and having a great dual meet season, beating Lehigh in the duel, Lehigh is seeking their fourth straight title, and it's going to be a tough team race. Lehigh has 4 number ones with Jordan Wood, Jacobson, Hines, and Lane. Navy has only 1 number one with Cody Tribus at 141, but their other talent, they've just got some hard-nosed talent. That's why you've seen a lot of their duels this year. They haven't necessarily won by crazy margins, but they're just winning matches. They're grinding it out, and I want to just see them grind it out and win an EIWA title. But Lehigh has a lot to say about that. Lock Haven is back in the MAC. They're back for the MAC, I should say. It's not like they were outside the MAC. It's not like they left the MAC, but they're back to wrestle at the MAC championships this year. After not wrestling this season, they will wrestle in the championships. Now, unfortunately for them, their guys pretty much have to all do phenomenally. They have to win the championships. They have to kind of take a spot from somebody else, because none of them are really in the coaches' ranks, because none of them have really wrestled this year. They haven't wrestled this year. So it's awesome to see him back, but Keegan O'Toole, is somebody on Mizzou who's looking to remain undefeated going into the NCAA championships. And Mizzou is a team that is seeking their 10th straight. So Okie State is seeking their 9th straight. NC State is seeking their 3rd straight. Lehigh is seeking their 4th. And Mizzou is seeking their 10th straight title. They have 4 number ones, similar to Lehigh, actually. So it's kind of funny how that works out. But they have 4 number ones, and Brock Mahler, Keegan O'Toole, Alan Hart, and Matthew Schmidt. Now, Hart is seeking his first title, undefeated right now on the season. Mahler is after his 3rd title, and Keegan O'Toole is after his first title as a freshman. It's awesome to see how these true freshmen do, and coming into a season undefeated, in the NCAA, potentially undefeated if he wins his conference title. That'll be interesting to see where he ends up getting ranked at 65, which is a very tough weight, as I keep saying. I believe it's the hardest weight. If you listen to last week's Fanco Wrestling Show, I think 165 is the absolute toughest weight, most stacked weight, has the most depth in the entire NCAA. Now, Mizzou's not just going to, maybe they will walk over everybody, but Northern Illinois and Central Michigan are going to put up a fight. 2 more conferences with some big storylines. And I want to fill you in and make sure you know everything here, because once these conference championships are happening, whether you're watching on or listening live or following on Twitter or Flow or you're just waiting to come back to Fanco Wrestling for the following week, there's just so much going on. And so that's why I find it important to let you know exactly what you need to know. In the Pac-12, a couple different things here. So Arizona State is looking for their 4th title in 5 years. The 4th title in 5 years. The one team that has actually kind of that took the 1 title away from them was Stanford. And unfortunately, this may be Stanford's last season, last Big 12 championships. Now, they won the title in 2019, but can a guy like Jaden Bass win his first title and maybe his only title as a Stanford wrestler? It sounds grim to say, but it's the reality of the situation. Shane Griffith is seeking his 2nd Pac-12 title. still seeking an NCAA title, has been riding a great wave since last season. Another tough 165-pound wrestler. Nathan Traxler, also of Stanford at heavyweight. Now, Vandermeer versus Teamer, with Stanford, with Arizona State, looking at those guys at 157, haven't wrestled, both Pac-12 champs. It'll be interesting to see how that match goes down. Other things going on in the Pac-12 with Arizona State. Colton Schultz and Trey Muniz are looking for their first ever titles. Brandon Courtney, Ja'Cory Teamer, Anthony Valencia, and Cornell Norfleet are all looking to repeat in the upcoming weekend in the Pac-12 championships. And I think this may be the most, if they all win, could be the most back-to-back champs for any one team, just because they had a lot of these guys come back. Valencia now seeking his fourth Pac-12 title, and Norfleet is looking to stay undefeated. He is just riding that wave, 13-match win streak. And speaking of teams that are riding waves and looking for another title, Campbell University is seeking their third straight title in the SoCon. They won the regular season SoCon championship by defeating App State and Chattanooga, as well as staying undefeated within their conference. Only loss on the year to Virginia Tech, who is now a top 3, top 4 team. Some polls top 5, but that was their only dual meet loss. And the thing was, it was close duels with Chat and App, and each of those teams are going to put up a fight against them. You can watch this obviously on ESPN Plus, and in another segment, I did talk about how to watch every single conference championship. If you haven't checked that out, I recommend that. I have all the links to take you right there. But the last team to win 3 SoCon championships in a row was Chattanooga. From 2011 to 2015, they won their titles 5 in a row. Campbell's looking to win 3 in a row, the most since that time. Now, Campbell right now has the most number 1 seeds. Seedings just came out. Most number 1 seeds in the SoCon with 4 number 1 seeds. Campbell's entering with 3 top 20 ranked wrestlers as well, with Josh Heil, Austin Murphy, Caleb Hopkins. It's going to be exciting to see what happens there. And there's going to be so much going on in the conference championships weekend. Please, I'm interested to know which conference you're most looking forward to. I'm sure a lot of you are most looking forward to Big Tens, but I do also know that Fanco Wrestling has a large viewership from around the country. It's the number 1 most listened to wrestling podcast, college wrestling podcast on YouTube. And we're quickly growing. We're massively growing on Apple Podcasts, thanks to supporters, thanks to channel listeners, thanks to watchers like you. So I thank you for that. If you like this clip and are looking for more wrestling news and discussion, I recommend that you check out the full Fanco Wrestling Show podcast, which is live on this YouTube channel every single week. You can click here to subscribe to be notified of new and upcoming videos, or you can check out the Fanco Wrestling Show on your favorite podcasting platform to listen on the go. Stop stalling and start listening today.